back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Really delighted always to have my good friend Tony Powers on. And he's a radio host, Powers to the People, and often on our program. And I'm delighted whenever I can get on his show. And his website, italkus.com, and which is also the website of a nationally syndicated radio service that they're developing and going gangbusters. Really excited always to have you on the show, Tony. How are you, sir?
Oh, I am doing great. How are you, Kevin? It's a pleasure to be on.
Thank you. Always glad to have you on. Yeah, lots to talk about. Of course, earlier this week, big elections. Another Super Tuesday. I don't know if my digestive tract can handle many more of these, but was an interesting turn of events. These guys like Rubio. Obviously, Marco Rubio has been operating under an incredible delusion. And meanwhile, I even think Kasich is obviously as well. He finally got his first win, and he was practically crying. And he won a state that he's currently governor of. And he actually almost shocked that he won that race. It's really amazing if you think about how bizarre the world of politics is that we live in today.
Oh yeah, he's 1 in 24, and it was pretty funny watching that acceptance speech the other night. Kasich is delusional. I think he thinks that somehow he's going to be some kind of broker at a convention, and that he's going to be able to carry enough chips there to help make him the VP. I don't know what his interests really are, other than to trying to stop Donald Trump from getting to the 1237. But this is really a two-man race now. It's Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. And, of course, we see Marco Rubio now out, and I think this is going to make things a little more clarified between the two front-runners, and Kasich, I think, is just irrelevant going forward.
Yeah, if he hasn't been up to now.
Yeah.
I noticed the delegate count. He still has fewer delegates than Rubio. Begging the question, why isn't he pulling out either? And here's the answer. The answer is real simple. Until Tuesday, Rubio and Kasich were saying, "Oh no, we need to keep going. And as long as we all keep going, there will not be a Trump nominee." Well, what it will mean is that there's a brokered convention. And what a surprise! The establishment guys would want a brokered convention, and Ted Cruz, the only real movement conservative, would not.
Oh yeah, and there was that 5-state sweep by Trump. It was perfectly predictable because we had all these open primaries, and it's really no evidence that Trump is in fact going to win a one-on-one race against Ted Cruz going forward, because you got a lot of closed contests coming up. I really hate the way the Republicans have set up their whole primary system, because it was front-loaded with these open primaries in order to get a moderate Republican, also known as a establishment Republican, the nomination. Unfortunately, this time, I don't think they ever counted on a Donald Trump, and these open conventions have made it easy for him to win. We saw earlier in the week on Tuesday night, Ted Cruz would have won North Carolina, he would have won Illinois, he would have won Missouri, walking away if Marco Rubio had not been in the race. And yet Marco Rubio stayed in after the SEC primary, when there was really no way for him to win the nomination from that point. He was a spoiler, and, of course, he wanted to win his home state. He lost it badly. And I really don't see where that leaves Marco Rubio going forward. So it was all for naught, and all they did was allow Donald Trump to win 3 or 4 states that he shouldn't have won on Tuesday night.
I loved Donald Trump's remarks afterwards. The little Marco, the choker, is now a super tough guy who has a fantastic future. And how people who hate politicians and hate political garbage can hear this kind of rhetoric from this guy who literally bounces all over the radar screen is mind-boggling to me.
It really is. I mean, nobody knows where Donald Trump's coming from. And, the lion Ted will go away as soon as Donald Trump thinks he's got Ted Cruz beaten, if that should happen. But again, we now have a situation where we're going into the second half of the primary, really. Trump has about half the delegates he would need to get to the 37. He's just a little more than half. I think he's got 3 delegates more than half. And so the second half of this primary season, we're going to see a whole lot of closed primaries where Ted Cruz does well. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how it goes going forward. I think Donald Trump, once you get into a one-on-one with Ted Cruz, we've seen the polls, and Cruz wins those 56 to 40, something like that. Kasich, though, staying in, may be able to I don't know how Kasich's going to actually work. He may draw some moderates away from Trump, but, of course, he will draw away from Cruz as well.
Yeah, I pretty much think that the vast majority of Trump support is actual Democrats who are trying to move, to destroy the GOP, basically, in the GOP's, chances. I don't know if they're the largest group, but they're a large group. And then secondarily, just really useful idiots, people who are disgruntled, long-term unemployed, chronically unemployed, want to blame someone else for the lack of success in their life. And I admit, government makes it really hard for people to succeed, and the government's kind of waging an economic war on average Americans. But, thinking a guy with almost fascist inclinations like Trump is going to make your life better, man, that's just delusional. And I think really that's the bulk of his support. And I don't think most of those are movable. I think most of those are going to pretty much stick with Trump. The question is what will the Rubio vote? Where will the Rubio voters go? And what number of people who will go into the polls who just think it'd be better to have a broker convention than have one in which either Trump or Cruz rises to the top? That's going to be the million-dollar question. I was expecting, with the assault, the wonderful, articulate assaults that both Cruz and Rubio were doing on Trump, they were all honest, they were very accurate, would have had more damage. It looked like they were for a while, but they don't seem to be having the impact that I thought they'd have.
Oh no, you're absolutely right about Trump supporters. They are dyed-in-the-wool supporters of Donald Trump, and I think you're absolutely right as to their motivations too. I think it's a lot of people who have been disenfranchised. They probably haven't really participated in politics a whole lot because they don't like either party. Donald Trump kind of represents a populist message that appeals to them because they see him as somebody who cares about the little guy and is not going to be bought off by the special interest in Washington, D.C., and that whole idea that he is self-funding. I guess now only billionaires can run for president, but they like that idea, and when you talk to them, that's the first thing they mention. Well, he can't be bought. Well, is $10 billion enough for Trump?
I got a feeling it's not. My gut would tell me.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's my argument, too. My argument is that people with a lot want a lot more. They didn't get a lot by having limits to their appetite.
Oh, exactly. Trump he didn't build a $10 billion empire because he wanted to stop at $10 billion and run for president.
Right.
And he still has a family. He's got kids. I'm sure he'd like to grow that to a $50 billion empire. And the idea that a guy who has been buying politicians for the last 40 years and actually been participating in the whole crony capitalism that these very people seem to be railing against, that he is not going to, he's going to change his stripes and suddenly become a populist who is actually looking out for the people and not the special interests. It's crazy.
It's insane. Talking to Tony Powers, great radio personality. He's out there in Georgia and Carolinas. And also you can find him at italkus.com. Yeah, I was just reading, the Trumpkins is what I like to call them, Trumpkins. They are, promoting this idea that I saw where the Trump was very critical the Bureau of Land Management for stealing people's lands. Well, this guy's made a living off of eminent domain. So we're using government. He doesn't mind government taking things as long as it's for his wealth and his personal prosperity. Of all people to be critical of government overreach and taking property over, how hilarious is it that it would be Donald Trump?
Oh yeah, and he's on to both sides of that issue as well. He's said that he's against the states having control over the what is now federal land. Well, really, it should be the states who are controlling that land and not the federal government. So he's another big government guy. He believes in centralized power in Washington, D.C., and he's just like the rest of these guys. Unfortunately, the people who follow him, all they hear is, we're going to make America great again, and they think that somehow he's going to magically make deals and tariffs are going to work, and we're not going to have another Great Depression as a result.
His trade view is almost identical to Bernie Sanders. You could practically overlay their policies, and they would be the same. And it literally is Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1928, which within a month of that passing, the stock market crashed. And the reason why is because it's really simple economics. If we're putting burdens and restrictions on goods that are coming in, those countries will retaliate and put the same types of burdens and restrictions on us. And next thing you know, no goods are exchanged. You know, and which eventually led to World War II, I believe. I believe it contributed to World War II. Bastiat is attributed to saying that when goods are not crossing borders, troops are. And I think that, that paved the way to World War II. It wasn't that long before Hitler rose to power and there was an economic environment where war made a lot more sense than it does when you're bombing customers.
Well, we could go back to 2009. I mean, even more recently, Obama imposed that tariff, 35% tariff on Chinese tires because they were flooding the market with Chinese tires. It cost us $1.1 billion. At least that's how much it cost the American consumer in extra cost to buy the tires. And then what did the Chinese do? They just slapped a $1.1 billion tariff on American chicken going to China. And so it hurt our agricultural industry So we lost $2.2 billion in economic activity. Because of that. I mean, it just doesn't work. Tariffs are the worst thing in the world, and that's Donald Trump's answer to these trade deals. I think what we really need to do is make America a more welcoming environment for business and for manufacturing and lower the highest corporate tax rate in the world, get rid of a lot of the bureaucratic all of these regulations that are really tying the hands of American business and make it a more business-friendly country again, and then we'll see our trade deficit go down.
Yeah, absolutely. The problem isn't a protectionism problem. It's a competitiveness problem. And the only way you solve that problem is by making America more competitive. And, it's just really that simple. And, in fact, these type of tariff approaches and quota approaches, all they do is make us less competitive. They don't work. They never have. There's just a vast history of that. And what's interesting about it is that historically, both the left and right has believed that. It's not just a conservative thing. It's a liberal thing. It's only the really crazy wacko lefties that don't buy into that. And those guys have given up on the idea of competition. The reality is it's hard to be competitive when they want this much regulation and this high of wages and this high of taxes. You really don't have much choice but protectionism at that point.
Oh, yeah, and we've done it to ourselves. We've made ourselves not a competitive nation as far as our cost of creating and producing goods and services in this country has gone up, and it's because of government regulation, government taxation. And without that, and actually Ted Cruz has a great plan. I don't understand why he can't break through with his message, but his plan would bring a lot of economic growth to this country, and it would actually improve our trade deficit because we could produce goods and services for a lot less here in America and do it a lot more efficiently. We can compete if we have a fair playing field.
Absolutely, no question about it. So get real with about a minute left, my friend, Tony Powers. What do you see happening? Broker convention, or Cruz wins straight out, or Trump ends up being the nominee?
I think it's going to be close. I think either Cruz or Trump could get a plurality. I don't think anybody's going to make it to the 1237, and Kasich being that little wild card that might prevent that from happening. But I think you'll see Cruz winning a lot of these closed primaries going forward. And I think a lot of people are going to begin to tire of Donald Trump. Not his core supporters, they're going to be with him, but that's only about 35 or 40%. I think what we're going to see in the second half is Cruz surging, and it'll go right down to the wire, probably right to the convention, and we probably will have a contested convention. And hopefully Rubio will throw in with Cruz at the convention, and then we'll be done with Trump for a while. although I think his supporters are probably going to bolt anyway.
Yeah, and we all know from the statistics we've seen, the polling we've seen, that the reality is Trump can't win in November. He simply can't win in November. And so and that's why his crazy, wacko liberal friends are hopping on board. I hope you're right, because any candidate who ultimately doesn't support Cruz and supports a third person, out of a brokered environment, John Dewey style, 1948. Well, this is in 1948. It will be the obituary for the GOP if that happens.
Oh, yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I don't think they'll do that. I think they're going to finally fall in line behind Cruz as much as they hate him.
Tony Powers, thanks so much as always for being with us.